Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Sight for White, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Saturday the 2nd of September 2023. Wow, September already, and the children returning to school next week, and of course Millbrook House reopening. After a month of tidying, cleaning, rearranging and setting the rotas and activities for the next 11 months, everybody is very much looking forward to seeing the friendly faces of our members return this week. As you are listening to this, we are in fact at Wolverton Fair this weekend, raising the awareness of the charity and of course vital funds. Over the next couple of weeks we have our open day on the 13th, which, as I have said before, is much more of a community event this year with local charities here to offer full help and support to all of our members. And then on the 16th it is Isle of Wight Day, and our trustees will be at Isle of Wight Day playing goal ball. So if you'd like to come along and join us and say hello, we look forward to seeing you. Please don't forget to read the newsletter, which was posted out to you last month. It contains all of the information about our weekly, monthly and one-off activities, and we look forward to seeing as many people as possible at these events. If there is, however, something you'd like to try and need a little help, never hesitate to call us on 522205. Thank you, Lisa.
This is Alison reading an article from the Island Echo entitled Atlantic Row Hopefuls Rescued After Getting into Difficulty off St Catherine's Point. An ocean rowing boat, reported to be in difficulty against a strong tide and a force 5 westerly breeze off St Catherine's Point, led to a joint rescue effort involving 3 lifeboats and a Coast Guard rescue team yesterday evening, Wednesday. At around 15:30, Solent Coast Guard requested the launch of Sandown and Shanklin Independent Lifeboat to locate and assist the ocean-going rowing boat Sarabi, which had suffered rudder failure south of St Catherine's Point. The volunteer lifeboat crew made their way to the most southerly point of the Isle of Wight and eventually located the casualty vessel with 4 persons on board. A tow was established, but with fears of the boat capsizing, the decision was made to request the assistance of Bembridge RNLI. The all-weather lifeboat was soon launched and was on scene off the coast of Ventnor by 1748, where the all-female rowing boat crew was safely transferred on board. The 4 women are set to take part in a cross-Atlantic row in December under the name There She Rows, as part of the world's toughest row, a 3,000-mile unassisted row across the Atlantic Ocean. They were taken to Bembridge RNLI's offshore boathouse, where officers from Bembridge Coast Guard rescue team were on hand to provide assistance. The women were provided with food and water. Meanwhile, Sandown Lifeboat towed the rowing boat to a mooring in the calmer waters off Sandown. Then, at around 1900, Bembridge RNLI's inshore lifeboat was launched and proceeded to Sandown to continue the tow of the rowing boat to Bembridge Harbour. The casualty vessel arrived in the safe haven of Bembridge Harbour by 2030, where the 4 women had been taken by Coast Guard rescue officers to be reunited with their boat. The incident was brought to a close by 21:15, almost 6 hours after the alarm was raised. In March 2022, GB Row Challenge, another ocean-going rowing boat, got into difficulty whilst training off the Isle of Wight.
This is Brian reading an article from the Island Echo. 5-hour standoff brought to an end as teen gives up weapons. A 5-hour standoff between armed police and a teenager holed up in an East Cowes flat was brought to a safe conclusion on Monday night when the individual handed over a number of weapons, including a firearm and a knife. Emergency services descended on York Avenue at around 6 p.m. on Monday night in response to concerns for the welfare of a 16-year-old boy. Cordons were soon erected in the area as armed officers took up position, guns and riot shields at the ready. Local businesses were forced to close, and a number of residents found themselves wandering the streets, unable to go home. Additional resources were called in from the mainland, arriving at Ryde Pier by a Ministry of Defence launch by 7 p.m. It is thought a negotiator was also rushed across the Solent in a bid to cool the situation. Following several hours of talks, the incident was brought to an end shortly before 10:45 p.m. after police convinced the teenager to throw a number of weapons out of the window, allowing officers to move in and make an arrest. A team of riot gear-clad officers made their move and stormed the flat, dragging a male out in cuffs. Police have confirmed that a number of weapons were involved in the incident, including an air gun and a knife. Island Echo has obtained photographs showing the moment that what appears to be a pistol and a rifle-type gun were shown to officers. As a result of the siege, a 16-year-old boy from East Cowes has been arrested on suspicion of threats to kill. He remains in police custody at the current time. A spokesperson for Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary has this morning, Tuesday, said, "We were called at 5:50 p.m. on Monday the 28th of August to a report of the concern for the welfare of a 16-year-old boy at an address on York Avenue, East Cowes. Officers attended and various weapons, including a knife and an air gun, were seen. Specialist officers were deployed to the location to ensure the safety of the boy, officers and member of the public."
This is Chris, reading an article from the Island Echo. Highway Authority raises further road safety concerns over gravel extraction plans. White Building Materials has not been able to demonstrate that the 50 heavy goods vehicles movements a day associated with the proposed sand and gravel extraction at Palmer's Farm in Wootton can safely be accommodated along the proposed route. Hampshire County Council has come to the conclusion in their review of a planning application submitted to the Isle of Wight Council which seeks to extract gravel from land at Palmer's Farm. The Mainland Council are acting as the highway authority in this instance, as both Island Roads and White Building Materials are part-owned by French construction giant Vinci Group, and therefore there is a conflict of interest. Although recognising Brock's Copse Road and Alveston Road are currently used by a mix of traffic, Hampshire County Council has noted that the proposed development is increasing the frequency of potential conflict occurring, as it is increasing the number of heavy goods vehicles using the roads. Furthermore, it considers that there are a number of safety issues with the use of Brock's Copse Road, given that it is narrow, has significant changes in levels and a lack of formal passing places. The conclusion achieved by Hampshire County Council has been independently confirmed in a 37-page report by YES Engineering Limited, commissioned by Wootton, Whippingham and Arraton against gravel extraction, WAGE. Catherine Backhouse, YES Transport Director, has said, "It is our conclusion that the proposed route contravenes numerous Isle of Wight local plan, highway safety and national planning policy framework policies. It is clear that the roadworks that are needed to facilitate safe access of 20-ton lorries to and from Palmer's Farm along the route specified cannot be achieved and would have a detrimental impact on the rural nature of the area." A WAGE spokesperson has said, We welcome Hampshire County Council's latest feedback and their request for yet further information from White Building Materials. Both the transport and environmental experts we have consulted to review this application have all identified numerous failings in the assessments and reports submitted to date, and we urge the Isle of Wight Planning Committee to fully consider these before making any decision on this application.
$25 million deal will see 10 new Islander aircraft built at Bembridge. From the Island Echo, read by Chris. Australian air charter operator Torres Strait Air has indicated that it will order 10 new Islander aircraft from Britten-Norman as part of a 5-year fleet renewal programme valued at $25 million, and the aircraft will be built here on the Isle of Wight. Torres Strait Air's fleet of 7 existing Britten-Norman islanders form the backbone of the local community and its economy, operating vital sub-regional air transport services across Torres Strait and Cape York Peninsula. The 10 new aircraft will be amongst the first to be produced from the UK manufacturer's new production line at Bembridge Airport. In June, Britten-Norman announced the repatriation and onshoring of its entire production line of new aircraft to Bembridge, as previously reported by Island Echo. It was also reported last month that Spirit Air India have ordered 6 islanders also to be built at Bembridge. It means a minimum of 16 islanders are due to be built at Bembridge in the near future, with final assembly taking place at Leon Solent. Daniel Takai, Torres Strait Air CEO, has said, "Our commitment to this investment is for the people of Torres Strait and their future. The world is challenged with increasing sea levels. Our island communities, our people's homes are at sea level. Every effort must be made to offset carbon emission. We act now whilst continuing to provide the highest levels of aviation safety, comfort, efficiency, reliability and affordability to our people and those who come to our pristine waters and beautiful islands." Operating in one of the world's most protected regions, the Torres Strait Islanders are home to some of the most ecologically complex biodiversity and diverse marine flora and fauna in the Indo-Pacific. Britten-Norman's Green Future scheme will further enable the airline to operate responsibly in the region, driving a move towards net zero ecotourism. Britten-Norman's Green Future scheme allows operators who have purchased directly from the OEM to trade in their aircraft for the manufacturer's zero-carbon Islander product when they become commercially available.
This is Alison, reading an article from the Island Echo, entitled Ryde Marina Bowling Club win Women's Senior Fours national title in Leamington Spa. The Ryde Marina Bowls Club Women's Senior Fours team have won the Bowls England National Championship in Leamington Spa. The 4 ladies, Lean Hampshire, Carol Walton, Sandra Aldridge and Anne Bernard, will now go on to represent England in the British Isles Championships at Leamington Spa in June 2024. In the first round, Ryde Marina overcame Workington Bowls Club 2017. In the second round, Ryde Marina beat Poole Park 16-11. The Ryde ladies then went on to win their quarter-final game against Bolton Bowling Club 15-13. In Thursday's semi-final, Ryde Marina was victorious against Alton Social by a score of 18-17. And so to the final, played on Thursday afternoon, in which Ryde Marina emphatically beat Dunholm St Giles from Lincolnshire 17-7 to take the national championship. George Bernard of Ryde Marina Golf Club said, "This is a great achievement for the Isle of Wight, and it would be a great honour to represent England in the British Isles Championships."
This is Brian reading an article from the Island Echo. Changing planning law could see more pop-up camping sites on the Isle of Wight. The Isle of Wight could soon see more glamping, camping and caravanning sites opening up thanks to a change in planning law. The season for pop-up camping has now more than doubled, offering enterprising landowners a vital lifeline for their diversification ambitions. Prior to last month, there was a 28-day limit on operating temporary sites for glamping, campervans and motorhomes. Now the permitted development rights last a total of 60 days. This means that landowners can open up their gates for a more substantial and worthwhile period, such as the whole of July and August, to cover the busy summer period. The new regulations, which apply to England only, are conditional on there being no more than 50 pitches and having toilets and waste disposal systems in place. Only tents and motorhomes, campervans are allowed under the rules, not towable touring caravans. Landowners who already operate pop-up camping sites are not required to seek extra planning permission, but they must notify councils of the opening dates in advance. It is thought that locals are already taking advantage of the change in law, with a new camping site sited in Brading this month, for example. But with more landowners now set to take advantage of the commercial opportunities, a rural insurance broker is urging them to be aware of the risks. William Nicol of Lysets has said, "Glamping will inevitably involve members of the public setting foot on private land. Health and safety risk assessments, along with measures and procedures to ensure a safe environment, are therefore essential. Public liability is also a must, and insurers may request site inspections to ensure quality standards and requirements are being met. Furthermore, a longer glamping season may see landowners taking on staff, so employers' liability cover must be in place."
This is Chris, reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Building works on the cards for St Mary's Hospital with stroke unit on the move. More building works are on the cards for the Isle of Wight's hospital, as the stroke unit is on the move and a roof needs to be raised. New plans have been submitted by the Isle of Wight NHS Trust to renovate part of the existing Newcroft building, which currently holds the stroke unit, into fracture and imaging clinics. It ties in with the major works currently underway next door to the Newcroft building at St Mary's Hospital in Newport, constructing the £10 million Community Diagnostic Centre. The fracture and imaging clinics support the purpose behind the new centre, facilitating earlier diagnostic testing and improving outpatient care. It also helps the Trust's overall plan to bring together the outpatients departments at the north end of the hospital, planning documents say. To make the Newcroft building suitable for the clinic's relocation, part of the existing roof needs to be demolished and then raised to accommodate X-ray equipment and a new air handling unit. New waiting facilities could also be created for 3 outpatient departments in the new internal layout. Once the works are done, it would connect directly to the new Community Diagnostic Centre waiting area, the existing phlebotomy department and corridor to the main hospital. You can view the plans on the Isle of Wight Council's website, and comments can be submitted until September the 18th.
MP welcomes Home Secretary's police force plan. From Isle of Wight Radio, read by Chris. The Isle of Wight's MP Bob Seeley has welcomed new plans for police forces to improve responsiveness. The plans, set out in a letter to all Chief Constables and Police and Crime Commissioners from the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, and Policing Minister Chris Philp, detail a number of specific expectations of police forces, including taking action when victims of theft provide officers with the location of a stolen mobile phone via tracking apps, operating on the basis of a zero-tolerance approach to drug misuse with officers using their powers such as stop and search, using available CCTV in areas affected by antisocial behaviour to identify suspects, following every reasonable line of inquiry in cases of shoplifting, including using CCTV to identify suspects and using clear images of any unknown suspects of crime to search the Police National Database for matches using facial recognition when appropriate, answering all emergency 999 calls in less than 10 seconds and all non-emergency contact, whether 101 or online, as quickly as possible. Forces have also been encouraged to publish 101 answering time data by March 2024. The changes will be supported by the recruitment of an additional 20,000 police officers in England and Wales, and additional funding, which includes an additional £1 million for each force outside of the City of London to fund antisocial behaviour hotspot patrolling, plus £1 million per force to fund immediate justice in relation to antisocial behaviour. The Home Secretary's letter said, "All too often, the public feel that information they provide to the police about a crime is not acted on. This must stop, as it undermines public confidence and misses opportunities to solve crimes and bring perpetrators to justice." The letter went on to say, "We understand that officers must make difficult operational prioritisation decisions. This will continue to play a crucial role in how the police keep the public safe. However, with the historic uplift in officer numbers and measures to reduce pressure on police time, you are empowered to thoroughly investigate more crimes. The government and the public expect this."
This is Alison, reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio entitled "Clock Ticking to Find Solution for Island Children's Services." The clock is ticking to find a solution to the authorities' children's services dilemma, the Isle of Wight Council leader has said. Councillor Laura P.C. Wilcox, who is also the new education lead, said the authority has 5 months until Hampshire's proposed date to end its partnership with the Isle of Wight Council on January the 31st, 2024. Just 1 month ago, Hampshire County Council announced it wanted to halt the decade-old deal, which saw the island's services and education department run by the mainland authority. Isle of Wight Council cabinet members must also agree a formal last day. The council's cabinet will meet in the coming weeks to decide the best way forward, while those outside the senior circles say they are in the dark and have no idea what the ruling Alliance administration's intention is. Speaking at today's, Tuesday, meeting of the Council's Appointments and Employment Committee, the Isle of Wight Council's Chief Executive, Wendy Pereira, said a lot of options were being considered, including keeping the services in-house, creating a new strategic partnership with a different organisation, or a hybrid option, with some services delivered by the council and others delivered by someone else. The authority agreed to recruit a new Director of Children's Services. However, a permanent service director may not be required if Cabinet agrees to go into partnership with another authority. So the recruitment process will not start until a decision is made. If the council has a sole children's service director, the successful recruit could be on a salary of at least £109,693, according to the council's current pay policy. Councillor Jeff Brodie said he was concerned committee members were putting the cart before the horse, adding he was in the dark about the Alliance's plans for children's services. Former Children's Services and Education Cabinet member, Councillor Paul Brading, said he felt the Hampshire partnership had been very strong for years, adding the island had missed out on a chance to renegotiate the arrangement to scale it down. Instead, the mainland authority dropped us, he said. The committee also agreed to look into interim arrangements for a director to cover any gaps in services and leadership. The island's service is still being run by Hampshire under the directorship of Stuart Ashley, the former Deputy Director for Children and Families. It follows the departure of former Director Steve Crocker and Brian Pope, the Education and Inclusion Deputy Director. The termination of the partnership came as a shock to the Isle of Wight Council, with Hampshire saying it was choosing to focus on children in its own county. Last month, Councillor P.C. Wilcox apologised for the way potential school closure announcements had been made as she took over the educational lead role from Councillor Debbie Andre.
This is Brian reading an item from Isle of Wight Radio. £1 million Olympic-sized sea pool plan revealed as part of Yaverland regeneration. £1 million wave-shaped Olympic-sized accessible sea pool could open as part of the Isle of Wight seafront's major regeneration project. Swim the Wight, a community social enterprise, is fronting plans to build a sheltered, accessible, sustainable, low-maintenance eco-sea pool in Yaverland to help people become more comfortable and safe with the sea. It could be built into the sea defences along the esplanade and be suitable for triathletes, local swimming groups and the general public to use. Project leader Sue Barker said it could also have rock pools to one side and be accessible from both the esplanade and beach with a ramp to access the pool. Swim the Wight has launched a survey asking residents, either swimmers or non-swimmers, what their attitudes are to the sea and what they would think of a sea pool. It is open until the end of September and can be filled in at swimthewight.org.uk/seapool. A science centre is also forming part of the plans, which could provide real-time water quality testing of the sea pool and the rest of the island. The group has also been working with Southern Water to monitor the quality of the water in the bay daily, and Sue hopes the real-time testing would allay people's fear of pollution in the sea and therefore in the pool. Sue said it was just as important to make the sea pool accessible from the esplanade and the beach, as the stretch of sand from the Sundial Cafe in Sandown through the Yaverland Sailing Club is inaccessible for those with mobility issues. By including the sea pool as part of the defences could also cut costs down by 90%, Sue said, with a freestanding pool ringing up around £10 million compared to £1 million for the current plans. The sea defences are currently in the process of being replaced as they've reached the end of their useful lives. If nothing is done to fix the sea defences in the coming years, it is estimated that they could be breached within the next 5 to 10 years. The Environment Agency is devising plans to fix the defences and will be consulting residents later this year, but Swim the Wight is hopeful the sea pool will be included as one of the best ways forward. A challenge Swim the White now has is proving the pool would not have a negative impact on the marine environment, and that it would also be a viable option through a feasibility study. The group is working with the renowned architect Chris Roma-Lee from Studio Octopi, who has designed pools in Scotland and Ireland and is currently working on a floating pool for the River Thames in London. It is also using the expertise of local ecological engineers Art Ecology, based in Sandown, who create regenerative environments for marine wildlife, among other things.
This is Chris, reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Bembridge coastal defences. Weeks of traffic lights as defects found. Coastal defences on a stretch of the Isle of Wight's coastline need strengthening to prevent a protected nature reserve from being flooded. Ground investigation works will take place next month in Bembridge after surveys found some defences along Embankment Road were reaching the end of their life. This means temporary two-way traffic lights will be in place on one of the main roads in and out of the village for weeks. Some areas of the embankment are in poor condition, the Environment Agency says, and if nothing is done to repair the defences soon, there is a high chance they could be breached, leading to tidal flooding in the Brading Marshes Nature Reserve. The habitats and species in the marshes, which are protected by law, thrive in freshwater conditions and would not be able to tolerate the significant increase in salinity. The Environment Agency is looking to find a repair for the defences, with a particular focus on the area from Bembridge Sailing Club to St Helens Sluice Gates. The work is necessary to help better understand the composition and condition of the embankment, the ground conditions, and monitor groundwater levels. Options being considered include short-term defences and long-term plans of managing the coastline for the next 100 years as the risk of sea level rises increases. No decision has yet been made on how to address the flood and erosion risks, but initial assessments and outlined business case has been developed. Work will start in Bembridge on September the 4th, where land material will be sent away for testing. The Environment Agency said it only had a limited window of time to complete the work, so it could reduce the disturbance to nesting and wintering birds. The body says it has tried to reduce the amount of road closures as much as possible, so temporary traffic lights will be in place from September the 21st to October the 6th. There will also be some footpath closures and diversions will be in place. The work in Bembridge is starting at the same time as those in Ventnor, doing the same work to look at ground conditions, preparing for future coastal defence schemes.
Over £4,000 raised for the RNLI during annual Open Day at Bembridge, from the Island Echo, read by Chris. Despite a slow start to the day due to the Women's World Cup final on TV, there was a good turnout of visitors to Bembridge Lifeboat Station for its annual Open Day. Around 900 people visited the offshore lifeboat to inspect the Tamar Class's all-weather lifeboat. The inshore boathouse was also open, enabling the public to view the D-Class inshore lifeboat. There were also attractions with sideshows and stalls, and the RNLI shop was open all day selling lifeboat gifts, souvenirs and clothing. Refreshments were served by the Bembridge Lifeboat Guild members, the proceeds for which accounted for over £1,000 towards the overall sum. As well as being a fun event, there was an important message about how to keep safe in, on or around the sea, which was highlighted by the Bembridge RNLI's Coastal Safety Team giving out valuable advice, with many people expressing particular interest in safety issues. The Visits and Education team also had a busy time with the visitors to the offshore boathouse during the day, many expressing an interest in the work of the lifeboats and the lifeboat service. During the afternoon, the shoreline and boathouse were packed with spectators to watch the launch of the all-weather lifeboat, which, together with the inshore lifeboat, entertained the crowds with a thrilling simulated rescue and display, demonstrating how these lifeboats can respond and operate together in an emergency. Over £4,000 was raised on the day in support of the lifeboats.
Good morning everyone, this is Madeline.
And this is Jerry.
And before we start the second part of the Talking News, here is this week's Society News for the 4th of September. We reopen to members on Monday when swimming will resume at Medina Leisure Centre. Our IT drop-in resumes at Millbrook House on Monday, 9:30 until 12:30. Our Godsill Coffee Morning is on Tuesday at the Old Smithy from 10:30 to 11:35, and please feel free to drop in. On Tuesday we have yoga at Millbrook House from 1:45 to 2:45. Our coffee and chat is on this Wednesday, so please pop along to Millbrook House on Wednesday between 10 and 11:30 to enjoy coffee, cake and a chat with staff and members. After coffee and chat, we have our Sight for White feedback and catch-up at 11:45 to 12:30. This gives you the opportunity to tell us how we are doing and make suggestions for any improvements.
Mix and Mingle starts again on Thursday at Millbrook House from 10:30 to 2 p.m. We also on Thursday have our book group at Newport Library, and that's from 2 to 3 p.m. We will be at Wolverton over this weekend. Please come along and say hello to us. And please remember, if you wish to join us on either Wet Wheels on September the 18th or Warner's Holiday Break in October, you must call the office and put your name on our list. A date for your diary. Our next open date is on September the 13th between 11am and 3pm at the First Newport Scout Hall, which is Wednes Hall, St John's Road, Newport. We will have several island and mainland based exhibitors plus local charities on hand to discuss and support your needs.
Now we're moving on to some news items. Real treat in store for Islands book lovers. Tickets are about to go on sale for the book lovers event of the year, the Isle of Wight Literary Festival. From Monday, you will be able to buy tickets to hear authors and stars talk about their new volumes, giving fascinating insights in everything from history to royalty and football to politics, plus plenty of fiction. The festival, which runs from October the 5th to October the 8th, is once again based at Northwood House, but also has events at nearby St Mary's Church. New for this year is BCM-sponsored LitFest, a celebration of food and drink, with top names giving cookery demonstrations and talking about their love of food. The island's own Robert Thompson is amongst those confirmed, along with well-known food writer Rosemary Schrager and Saturday Kitchen wine expert Helen McGinn. Another islander, Dame Sheila Hancock, is among the authors speaking about entering her 9th decade, while British institution Dame Maureen Lipman will host a musical event. And top children's author Michael Morpurgo returns to the festival. But it isn't all about the household names, and there is something for everybody. This year, the festival is also pleased to announce an association with the Isle of Wight Book Awards, organised by top author and Ryde resident Hunter Davies. Maggie Ankers, chairman of the Isle of Wight Literary Festival, said, "We are delighted that tickets are going on sale and hope that there is something for everybody in our eclectic programme. LitFest is an exciting new event, and we look forward to welcoming all the authors to Cowes for 4 days of fascinating talks. A full list of speakers will be confirmed on Monday."
High-octane action at sea. Thousands flocked to Cowes and Gurnard for the return of the world-famous Cowes to Torquay powerboat race on Sunday. The 62nd edition of the race, round 5 of the 2023 UKO PRA Championship, gave the spectators plenty of high-octane action from the 29 competing powerboats on the Solent. As they did last year, Drew Langdon and crewmate Miles Jennings won the race, their 5th in a row, in Silverline. They clocked a time of 3 hours, 2 minutes, 22 seconds at an average speed of nearly 68 miles per hour over the 180-mile course, 72 minutes ahead of nearest challenger Blastoff Racing. They were the only 2 Class 1 powerboats to finish with 10 retirements. Setting off 10 minutes later was the 65-mile Cowes Pool Cowes race. The race, with a fleet of 17 competitors, was won by Renegade 2, piloted by Andy Foster and crewed by Charles Morris, who finished in 1:11:06. Islanders Peter Hall and Terry Parsons in E8 Mango Crazy came 5th in 1:22:03. Mango Crazy came second to fellow island entry Thunderstreak in Class 3E, which left just 250 points between them going into the final race of the championships in Southampton. That's on September the 23rd, with 400 points available. They were among 9 boats to finish the race.
Healthy Hall of NHS Award nods. Hard work deserves reward, and Isle of Wight NHS Trust employees have been nominated for a slew of prestigious healthcare awards. 6 teams have been shortlisted for accolades in recent weeks. An island team is in the running for the AHP Workforce Transformation Award at the Chief Allied Health Professional Awards on October the 12th. It will go to those who demonstrate change through innovation. Applicants were required to describe the benefits of service improvements to staff and patients, as well as the challenges they faced along the way. The Patient Experience team is among the finalists for Best Team at the Patient Experience Network Awards. The prizes will be handed out on September the 28th at the University of Birmingham. There are 2 nods for the Isle of Wight at this year's Nursing Times Workforce Awards. Island nurses are finalists for both the Best Employer for Staff Recognition and Engagement and the Workforce Team of the Year categories. They will find out if they have won at a ceremony in London's Hilton Metropole on November the 21st. For the 3rd year running, student nurse Jade Wareham is in the final to be named the Royal College of Nursing Awards Nursing Student of the Year. Meanwhile, the ambulance service has been shortlisted for an HSJ award in the patient safety category. The nod is for the team's work to develop integrated critical care pathways. There are also HSJ Patient Safety Awards chances for the Falls Shared Governance Council, FSGC, at St Mary's Hospital, and for a partnership scheme with the Isle of Wight Council's Wight Care Service.
White Audi A3 seized. Police are investigating after reports that 3 men entered a house in suspicious circumstances on Saturday. Officers were called at 4:42 p.m. to an incident in Ashy Road, Ryde, thought to be near the junction of Betsworth Road. It was reported that 3 men were seen arriving in a white Audi and entered an address in suspicious circumstances, police said. Officers attended the scene and found no signs of a disturbance or trace of the vehicle or men involved. A white Audi A3 matching the description was later located in Fairview Crescent, Sandown, and has been seized by the police. The matter is currently under investigation, and anyone with information should call 101, quoting reference 442 3034 6038.
How photo ID impacted by-election. 5 residents were stopped from voting in the by-election because they had no photo ID on them. The by-election in Wootton Bridge was the first time photo ID was needed to fill a vacancy on the Isle of Wight since the rules were changed by central government earlier this year. The requirement for photo ID to be brought along to the polling station was introduced in the hope it would prevent voter fraud. Wootton Bridge residents went to the polls on Thursday, but those who turned up without a valid photo ID passport, driving licence or concessionary bus pass were refused a ballot paper and could not vote. After the votes were counted, the Isle of Wight Council confirmed it did have to stop some members of the public from voting. A spokesperson confirmed 5 electors were refused a ballot paper due to having no voter ID, or they produced an invalid ID.
Wootton Bridge holds by-election. The Liberal Democrats have secured another seat on the Isle of Wight Council, one it last held 25 years ago. Last Thursday, voters went to the polls in Wootton Bridge and elected Sarah Redrup to represent them at County Hall in Newport. She will replace the disgraced former member Daryl Pitcher, who resigned from the authority 3 months into his sentence after he was jailed for historic child sex abuses. Sarah won the by-election by more than 180 votes and secured nearly half of the vote, which is 47.8%. She is the first Liberal Democrat to hold the Wootton Bridge seat since Maureen Stolworthy, who was the first to hold the seat when the Isle of Wight Council became a unitary authority in 1995 until 1998. Since then, the seat has swung between the former Conservative candidate Barry Abraham and Pitcher under the UKIP and Vectors Party banner, respectively, with either of the two filling the Isle of Wight position since 1998. Last week, the Conservative candidate, Ed Hopper, came in second, winning more than a quarter of the votes, 291. In third was Linda Pitcher, Daryl Pitcher's mother, representing the Vectors Party. She received 178 votes. Gaining 48 votes, Michael Smith, representing the Green Party, came in last place. Now Sarah, whose father Ray is a Conservative councillor on the authority, becomes the 4th Liberal Democrat at County Hall.
Carnival pulled due to weather alert. Organisers of the much-anticipated Ryde Carnival have said they are gutted at having to cancel last night, that's Thursday, due to a poor weather forecast. On top of an already wet day, the Met Office have forecast more rain for 6 p.m, turning heavy. Carnival organisers say they made the decision on safety grounds and that a wet evening would affect spectator numbers too. In a statement by Ryde Carnival Association, a spokesperson said they had been watching the weather all day and were really sad to have to cancel the carnival, the biggest on the island each summer. The Met Office predicted rain between 6 p.m. and 7 p.m, turning heavy at 8 p.m. Isle of Wight Speedway chiefs pulled the plug on Wednesday night Speedway in anticipation of bad weather yesterday. The statement continued, "At the end of the day, we want to keep people safe." Organisers added although they were really gutted at having to cancel, they urged islanders to come along and support it tomorrow, Saturday, because it's going to be an epic carnival. Saturday's illuminated carnival starts at 8:30 p.m.
Dog death caused by cruelty and neglect. A man who subjected a dog to cruelty and neglect, which led to the whippet being put down, will be sentenced next month. Stuart Squibb of Lower Furlongs, Brading, pleaded guilty to 2 counts of causing unnecessary suffering to a protected animal at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on Tuesday, August the 15th. A representative for the RSPCA said the 26-year-old caused an 11-year-old fawn-coloured female whippet-type dog, known as Weasel, prolonged cruelty and neglect. Between November the 14th, 2022 and January the 14th, 2023, Squibb failed to address the cause of the dog's poor bodily condition and weight loss. Squibb also failed to provide vet treatment regarding Weasel's osteoarthritis and limb deformity, the RSPCA reported. The court heard that the dog was put down. Squibb previously denied the offence. Michael McGoldrick, defending, said his client did try his best to look after Weasel, but admits it was not good enough. Mr McGoldrick told the court Squibb knows he could have done more and sees that now. Magistrates confirmed all options remain available, including custody, and ordered a pre-sentence report to be carried out ahead of sentencing on September the 22nd.
Moo and improved cowshed. An Isle of Wight Villages self-service Hut of Joy, which has been selling island milk and other dairy products for a decade, has expanded. The little cowshed, Haven Street, can still be found in the same place at Copped Hall Farm, opposite the junction of Firestone Copse Road. However, a new shed has been built slightly further back to accommodate more produce and more visitors. Owner Harold George told the county press the move has been made for safety reasons, with the former shed being too close to the road. Its new positioning means there is now enough room for at least 10 cars to park, he said. The White Milk Little Cowshed was first established by the George family in 2013. 10 years on, Harold said, "We have lots more produce than before, and we're hoping to have some more ideas to have other stuff as well." On sale is milk and other local produce, including eggs and honey. Cakes from island business White Bakes can also be bought.
Waterspout seen off the island. Mobile phones were swiftly turned to the sky on Saturday morning when a waterspout was spotted off the island. At first it was a mystery. Was this a tornado heading our way? The best views were from Sandown and Bembridge, looking out to sea at around 10:20 a.m. The phenomenon didn't quite touch down and eventually fizzled out, making it a classic over-the-sea waterspout, confirmed Isle of Wight Met Service forecaster Jamie Russell. Chris Welch took a video from Whitecliffe Bay, which can be seen at countypress.co.uk. He said, "We were on the Isle of Wight campsite for youth groups at Bembridge, taking down the site this weekend, when a call of tornado went out."
Drink driver abandoned his car after crash into roundabout. A man crashed his car into a roundabout, abandoned it and walked home after a boozy night out with his friends. Lewis Thorpe, 29, of Greenlands Road, East Cowes, admitted drink driving at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on August the 15th. Lauren Stone, prosecuting, said a police patrol was flagged down at 11:40 p.m. on May the 17th by a member of the public who reported an abandoned car at the racecourse roundabout. Ms Stone said police discovered a grey Seat Ibiza left at the entrance of Whippingham Road, and it was clear it had been in a collision with the roundabout, with skid marks visible on the road. Police searched for the owner, leading them to Thorpe's home, where his mother told officers he had walked home and then went to St Mary's Hospital. A blood test found that Thorpe had a reading of 112 milligrams of alcohol when the limit is 80. Barry Arnott, defending, said Thorpe had gone out with friends and drank too much. Thorpe suffered minor cuts to his knee and a chipped ankle bone with his car written off. Magistrates disqualified Thorpe for 14 months and ordered him to pay a £240 fine, £96 surcharge and £85 costs.
Students proud of results. The county press reporters visited schools last Thursday when students received their GCSEs. It wasn't just the top achievers who were celebrating. Students of all abilities were showing us their grades, in many cases delighted they had achieved more than had been predicted. School staff were also on hand to help advise those who didn't get the results they had hoped for. The Isle of Wight Council will not publish the full data for GCSEs and other Level 2 qualification results until the new year, when the validated data set is released by the Department for Education.
Water quality boost bid. Wastewater released from a treatment plant into a rural stream which eventually runs into Newtown Creek Nature Reserve could become cleaner. It comes as plans are lodged by Southern Water to extend the Calbourne Wastewater Treatment Works, one of 20 plants on the island. The centre currently treats sewage from around 130 people, but could expand to accommodate the predicted growth in the area in the next 12 years. The site on the Middle Road holds tanks, plants and buildings in the wastewater treatment process, and the effluent, once treated, is discharged into Calbourne Stream. The stream starts at the iconic Winkle Street, flowing down to the treatment plant before the water is joined by the treated waste and ends up at Newtown Creek. The works are being proposed, Southern Water says, to comply with an enhanced environmental permit for phosphorus as set by the Environment Agency. Phosphorus is found in wastewater coming from human waste, foods, certain soaps and detergents, and in excess quantities can lead to water quality problems like harmful toxic algal growth. The proposed development could improve the standard of the treated effluent that is discharged into the environment and the water quality of the stream.
Lee Bradbury sacked for poor season start. Lee Bradbury was sacked as Eastleigh manager following the side's poor start to the new Vanarama National League season. The Islander, who hails from Cowes, was a successful player with Portsmouth, Manchester City and Crystal Palace before embarking on a long career as a manager at South Coast clubs. Lee was relieved of his duties with the Hampshire club following a 2-0 defeat against Southend United last Friday. Eastleigh, who were tipped for possible promotion before the new season kicked off a few weeks ago, sit 15th in the National League with 6 points from the first 6 games. The Spitfires picked up their first victory of the campaign on Bank Holiday Monday. Bradbury took over at Eastleigh in February last year following the departure of Ben Strevens. He guided them to a 9th place finish in his first full season in charge, just missing out on the playoffs by 4 points. A statement on the Eastleigh website thanked Lee for his commitment to the club during his 18 months tenure and wished him all the best for the future.
Children's Services fix bid. The clock is ticking to find a solution to the authority's children's services dilemma, the Isle of Wight Council leader has said. Councillor Laura P.C. Wilcox, who is also the new education lead, said the authority has 5 months until Hampshire's proposed date to end its partnership with the Isle of Wight Council in January the 31st, 2024. Just 1 month ago, Hampshire County Council announced it wanted to halt the decade-old deal, which saw the Island Services and Education Department run by the mainland authority. Isle of Wight Council Cabinet members must also agree a formal last day. The Council's Cabinet will meet in the coming weeks to decide the best way forward, while those outside the senior circles say they are in the dark and have no idea what the ruling Alliance administration's intention is. Speaking on Tuesday, the Isle of Wight Council's Chief Executive, Wendy Pereira, said a lot of options were being considered, including keeping the services in-house, creating a new strategic partnership with a different organisation, or a hybrid option with some services delivered by the council and others delivered by someone else. The authority has agreed to recruit a new Director of Children's Services. However, a permanent service director may not be required if Cabinet agrees to go into partnership with another authority, so the recruitment process will not start until a decision is made. If the Council has a sole Children's Services Director, the successful recruit could be on a salary of at least £109,693, according to the Council's current pay policy. Councillor Jeff Brodie said he was concerned committee members were putting the cart before the horse, adding he was in the dark about the Alliance's plans for children's services. Former Children's Services and Education Cabinet member, Councillor Paul Brading, said he felt the Hampshire partnership had been very strong for years, adding the island had missed out on a chance to renegotiate the arrangement to scale it down. Instead, the mainland authority dropped us, he said. The committee also agreed to look into interim arrangements for a director to cover any gaps in services and leadership. The island service is still being run by Hampshire under the directorship of Stuart Ashley, the former Deputy Director for Children and Families.
Iconic scenes at the Isle of Wight Scooter Rally. There was a huge turnout for the annual Isle of Wight Scooter Rally ride out on Sunday. Not just scooterists, but streets lined with people watching all along the route from Ryde to Sandown Airport. The procession passed through from Ryde seafront to Nettlestone, St Helens, Bembridge, Yaverland, Sandown, Lake, Shanklin, Apsheath and into the airport. The scooterists' base this year was at the airport, and at 2 p.m, when the ride out ended, there was plenty of music, stalls and entertainment to make it a memorable day.
Beloved donkey Daisy dies. The Isle of Wight Donkey Sanctuary has said goodbye to popular donkey Daisy, who has died in her late 30s. She died on Saturday after receiving veterinary treatment and physiotherapy sessions for several medical conditions. She had been diagnosed with osteoarthritis and spondylosis. A spokesperson for the sanctuary said, "Despite the best efforts of our wonderful team of staff and volunteers, together with the support of our veterinary team and physiotherapist, Daisy's condition was deteriorating and she was beginning to suffer. Daisy spent her last day out in a paddock with her friends Coffee and Nick, surrounded by many volunteers, visitors and staff who loved her so much. It is always difficult when we lose one of our beloved animals, but we remember the joy they brought to so many, and we will remember Daisy with much fondness. Daisy lived at the sanctuary for 18 years. She was known as a gentle, calm donkey who had previously been in the community and outreach herd, meeting and greeting the public. She was extremely fond of people and would be the first at the paddock gate to meet team members, volunteers and visitors.
Man smashed glass into friend's head. A man has avoided an immediate jail sentence after causing lacerations to his best friend's head at a pub, fighting two of his neighbours and hurling extreme verbal abuse at police officers. Daniel Stewart Farrell of Spanners Close Jail attended the Isle of Wight Crown Court for sentencing on August the 29th. Farrell previously pleaded guilty to assault occasioning grievously bodily harm with intent, common assault by beating, assault of an emergency worker and using threatening, abusive or insulting words likely to cause harassment, alarm or distress. Harry Garside, prosecuting, said the 46-year-old spent 10 hours drinking at the White Mouse Inn in Chow with his best friend on August the 26th, 2022. After a disagreement, Farrell smashed a pint glass and a wine glass into the back of his friend's head, both of which smashed on impact, causing a 1-inch laceration. Mr. Garside told the court Farrell returned home where he was confronted by neighbours after kicking the garden fence and shouting. Farrell dragged one of his neighbours onto the floor, calling him a homophobic slur before throwing punches at a second neighbour. While being taken to Newport Police Station, he hurled offensive remarks at 2 officers before kicking out at police on arrival at custody, said Mr. Garside. David Richards, defending, said the incident at the White Mouse was the latest example of 2 friends falling out, and in a police interview the victim described his client as the brother he never had. Mr. Richards told the court Farrell's conduct in the police van and at the station was appalling, drunken, abusive behaviour. Farrell recalled wanting to put on some trousers but not being allowed to, leaving him in his underpants, said Mr. Richard. Describing himself as a lightweight who cannot take his drink, Farrell has not touched alcohol since. Recorder Richard Stead told Farrell he was extremely lucky that his friend's injuries were not as serious as they could have been. Farrell was handed an 18-month jail sentence, suspended for 2 years and must pay a victim surcharge.
Stall hygiene concerns. A pop-up co-op store at the Isle of Wight Festival was forced to throw out food after hygiene inspectors raised concerns and slapped it with a major improvement necessary rating. A recently released report from the Isle of Wight Council branded the temporary co-op store at Seaclose Park with a 1 out of 5 food hygiene rating. Environmental health inspectors also found the same problem at the co-op's 2022 Isle of Wight Festival store due to the hot weather, and meetings were held earlier this year to discuss how the problem would be avoided ahead of the 2023 event. A co-op spokesperson said they took immediate steps on the day of the inspection to rectify the issues, and they have since taken further action, implementing measures at subsequent and all future festival stores to ensure their usual high standards are met. Officers visited the festival on Thursday, June the 15th, and again on Friday, after they spotted an issue with the chiller cabinets. Staff at the co-op store were reliant on automated temperature monitoring equipment, which alerted them when the temperature went over 5 degrees centigrade. However, all the sensors were placed at the back of the shelves, where the temperature was below 5 degrees centigrade. but items at the front, including sandwiches, pasties and wraps, were measured above 8 degrees centigrade, with some even up to 15 degrees centigrade.
Hospital clinics are on the move. More building works are on the cards for the Isle of Wight Hospital as the stroke unit is on the move and a roof needs to be raised. New plans have been submitted by the Isle of Wight NHS Trust to renovate part of the existing Newcroft building, which currently holds the stroke unit into fracture and imaging clinics. It ties in with the major works underway at the Newcroft building at St Mary's, constructing the £10 million Community Diagnostic Centre. The fracture and imaging clinics support the purpose behind the new centre, facilitating earlier diagnostic testing. It also helps the Trust's overall plan to bring together the outpatient departments at the north end of the hospital, planning documents say. To make the Newcroft building suitable for the clinic's relocation, part of the existing roof needs to be demolished and then raised to accommodate X-ray equipment and a new air handling unit. New waiting facilities could also be created for 3 outpatient departments in the new internal layout. The works will connect to the new Community Diagnostic Centre waiting area, the existing phlebotomy department and the main hospital. View the plans 23/01401/FUL on the Isle of Wight Council's website.
Boy 15 arrested in drugs and knife find. A 15-year-old boy has been arrested on suspicion of drug, weapon and driving offences following a vehicle search in Newport on Wednesday. Cannabis, money, drugs paraphernalia and a lock knife were seized by officers at around 11 p.m, Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary said. Police conducted a search of an Audi A4 along Royal Exchange. A 15-year-old boy who was in the car was subsequently arrested on suspicion of using a motor vehicle without a licence and using a motor vehicle without insurance or an MOT. He was also detained on suspicion of being in charge of a vehicle whilst unfit through drugs, possession of an offensive weapon in a public place, and possession of cannabis with intent to supply. The vehicle was seized by police. The boy was bailed until September the 3rd.
Library set for its new chapter. A date for the full reopening of Newport's Lord Louis Library building has been revealed. Months of works which started earlier in the year are almost complete. The library has remained open for the majority of the time by operating from the Children's Library only. It will close for 2 days on Monday the 11th and Tuesday the 12th of September 2023. This is to allow staff to move books and items back into the front half of the building. The library will fully reopen on Thursday, September the 14th, and will once again be accessed via the main entrance at the front of the building. Rob Jones, the council's library service manager, said customers should continue using the temporary entrance located in Church Lytton until Saturday, September the 9th, which is also the last day of the Summer Reading Challenge. We will then be closing the library on Monday the 11th and Tuesday the 12th. Whilst we fully restock, the library is closed as usual on a Wednesday. We very much look forward to welcoming you back to the main library when we fully reopen on Thursday, September the 14th. A big thank you to all our customers for their patience and understanding during this time. Please remember you will still be able to use all of the online services at other island libraries whilst the Lord Louis Library is closed for 2 days at the end of the works. When the library reopens fully, customers will no longer be able to access the library via the temporary entrance in Church Lytton. Activities such as Rhythm Time Lego Club and the Over 60s group will be running as normal again. All public computers will be available for use, as well as printing and photocopy facilities.
Shock as Chippy announces a double closure. 2 popular fish and chip shops are due to close until further notice, it was announced on Saturday. Happy Haddock said its Shanklin and Sandown High Street shops will both be closed with immediate effect. A statement said, "The Happy Haddock will be closed until further notice. This is for both our Shanklin and Sandown shops. More information will be provided in due course. Apologies to our customers for any inconvenience. It comes during a busy bank holiday weekend for the Isle of Wight." The county press contacted Happy Haddock for further information, and a spokesperson for the business said, "We are just in the process of making some internal changes and will be able to provide a further statement next week after the bank holiday weekend." Happy Haddock opened its second shop in Sandown in the summer of 2020. Lake Fish Bar also recently announced it would be closing. Happy Haddock had previously offered free portions of food during school holidays to help during the cost of living crisis. It also specialises in offering senior meal deals.
Isle of Wight Jazz Weekend for Georgia. "I hope the sun shines as it's such a pretty location," says award-winning vocalist, lyricist and producer Giorgio Mancio, who returns to the Isle of Wight Jazz Weekend this month. "Whenever I tour outside of my home turf, which is London, I hope to make new friends who will continue to support my music," says the singer, who also teaches performance. "I've played several times over the last 9 years, each with a different project, from intimate trios to a full octet with string quartets," she told the county press. This time she will be part of a quartet consisting of pianist Robin Aspland, bassist Andrew Kleindart and drummer Dave Ohm. She describes them as being among some of Europe's finest musicians. "They bring enormous experience and emphatic ears, so we are very much a unit serving the songs, not 4 individuals," explains Georgia. "We'll be performing a lot of my own co-written originals, but the reference points will feel very recognisable to the jazz Latin standard repertoire. I like to write relatable stories that speak of the human experience, both poignant and humorous. Audience members get to know me through my performance and also perhaps recognise themselves." Georgia is billed as a storyteller, for her jazz enables personal expression, growth and reinvention. "Jazz spoke to my heart right from childhood, so I didn't question it deeply. We found each other," she says. She also speaks highly of the dedication and vision of Jim Thorne, the musician behind the Isle of Wight Jazz Weekend, which runs from September the 14th to the 17th. Its venues include Apollo Theatre, Key Arts, Mountbatten and Newport Methodist Church, and a host of fringe events are also planned at cafes and pubs across Newport. For Georgia, every jazz performance is unique and each player shapes the music. The energy of the audience delivers its own invaluable contribution. Georgia has performed in everything from the intimate Ronnie Scott's and Chelsea's 606 to the awe-inspiring South Bank Centre and the Royal Albert Hall for the 2019 Proms. "My aim is to connect with the people who have taken the time to come and hear me," she says. "That means responding and adapting. I find it helpful to think of improvising element as extending beyond the stage." She particularly enjoys performing those of her original songs that were written with a specific person in mind, or lush Brazilian compositions which are particularly satisfying in their original language. "I often close my performances with my own version of the Italian Bello Ciao, which has everything mixed into it, including an important message," she says. Also at Isle of Wight Jazz Weekend are the island's Sol Grimshaw with Blue Orchids already sold out, harpist Tara Minton, Pete Long's Benny Goodman Quintet and the Brass Volcanoes. For tickets and the full lineup, visit isleofwightjazzweekend.co.uk. To see Georgia Mancino at Newport Methodist Church from 3:30 p.m. on Saturday the September the 16th, visit isleofwhitejazzweekend.co.uk. That's iwjazz.co.uk/lineup/2023/Georgia.mancino.quartet.php.
This is an opinion from Matthew Chatfield. Empty exercise to placate me. The idea of a special island designation for the Isle of Wight is making the rounds again, with MP Bob Seeley and the Isle of Wight CPRE making recent interventions in favour of it. The concept is one that makes for good headlines but is devilishly difficult to pin down. I fear it might end up as another empty exercise to placate the likes of me before being diluted so far during the designation process that it becomes meaningless. Why do I think that? The legislative landscape is littered with the remains of previous efforts to designate and protect landscapes and habitats. Governments have a tendency to announce reviews and initiatives quite often, but actual results are less easy to spot. Anything new that seeks to protect wildlife and countryside tends to last as long as it takes for it to first encounter some overriding economic imperative. One of the highest legal protections for the land is the National Designation Site of Special Scientific Interest, or the SSSI, which has been around since 1949. To give you an example of how well that's going, recent government figures show that only 9.9% of river habitats on SSSIs are in favourable condition. At the same time, senior MPs are calling for nature watchdog agency Natural England, which lost 66% of its funding between 2010 and 2017, to be stripped of its powers. Former Environment Secretary George Eustice is keen to ensure that the SSSI system is decided by politicians, saying earlier this year, "It is not sensible for Natural England to have to make the decisions on SSSIs. Instead, ministers should take such decisions." This proposal for gratuitous politicisation brings to mind Michael Gove's notorious 2016 comment, "People in this country have had enough of experts." One pandemic later, and that sentiment has not aged well. We may have our doubts about science, but we are far more sceptical of politicians. So a new island designation would have to find some way to be supported by a system that, frankly, is often unwilling to implement the protections it already has. What's more, there is an existing process that could achieve many of the planning-related improvements identified for the proposed new designation. Unfortunately, it is dull and moderately complicated, so it doesn't get much attention. We on the island have the power to set our own planning rules in what is called the Island Planning Strategy, but we haven't done so. We are instead using rules last overhauled in 2012. Our local politicians have failed to agree on new ones, leaving the island subject to national guidelines that are certainly not tailored to our island situation. If we are looking for something we can do immediately to improve the protection of the environment across the island, not just protected areas, my suggestion is that we should finalise and adopt the island planning strategy now. Then, by all means, carry on waiting years for some ill-defined island designation that may have no teeth anyway.
September is when our hedgerows are laden with ripe blackberries. Blackberrying is one of the almost universal act of foraging to still survive in our industrialised and technologically advanced country. It's a link with the countryside and a link with the past going back thousands of years. Blackberry seeds have been found in the stomach of a Neolithic man dug up from submerged clay on the Essex coast. On Michaelmas, September the 29th, it was believed in many parts of the country that the devil defiled blackberries by spitting or urinating on them. After Michaelmas, it was unwise to pick any more. There is some evidence in this, for late blackberries are often succumb to mildews and bacteria. Brambles have other uses apart from giving us lovely wildlife, blackberries, etc. The flowers are a great source of nectar for butterflies and other insects. They form a natural, impenetrable living fence. Traditionally, brambles were used in medicine for healing and detoxifying properties, and fibres from the stem were used to make string. One of Aesop's fables, Lost in Time, concerns a cormorant, a bat and a bramble. The cormorant was a merchant dealing in wool. He went shares with the bat and the bramble in a boat to carry his wool overseas, but the boat was wrecked. The cormorant is always diving, looking for his cargo. The bat owes money and hides from its creditors till dark. The bramble makes up its losses by stealing wood from passing sheep. Brambles are an amazingly complex group of plants. There is not just one type of bramble, it comprises a large and complex group of over 300 closely related but subtly different microspecies. They are studied by a small band of bramble experts. The study of brambles is known as batology. Each microspecies spreads vegetatively or from seeds eaten by birds. They do not interbreed. Some are quite local. For instance, in 1845, the Victorian botanist Bell Salter discovered a new bramble in America Woods, outside Shanklin. It has conspicuous large white flowers and it was named Rubus salteri after him. It can still be found in America Woods but occurs nowhere else in the country. There is one bramble, a cultivated variety called Himalayan giant, which has escaped from cultivation. It is a particularly vigorous plant, difficult to control, and it is spread widely, taking over huge areas of grassland and scrub.
Moving on to what's on. On Saturday the 9th of September there is Lung Health and Wellbeing Information Day at 10:30 a.m. An opportunity to chat and obtain information from respiratory support specialists on living with and managing long-term respiratory conditions, and that will take place at Arreton Community Hall on the A3056 Newport, and the contact number is 07779 616 189.
On Tuesday the 5th of September we have Bob Howarth Big Band, and it's an evening concert at 7:45 at Ralstone Gardens, 11 Popham Road in Shanklin. And on Wednesday the 6th of September the Isle of Wight Ladies Friendship Group meets at 11:15 a.m. and they have a visit from the Isle of Wight defibrillators at 11:15. Tickets are £2 and it includes refreshments. It's at Rookley Village Hall and Sportsfield, Highwood Lane, Rookley. And you can contact them at askew.debuse@btinternet.com.
And on Saturday the 9th of September there's an Isle of Wight Dog Festival at 10 o'clock. The Isle of Wight Dog Festival is back at Arreton Barns, Arreton, Main Road, Newport, and further details on admin at isleofwightdogfestival.com.
At Medina Leisure, we have Stuart Michael, a psychic medium. He's on Saturday the 16th of September at 7:30. Bridget Christie, Who Am I? She is on Friday the 22nd of September at 7:30 p.m. And Tango Tells a Tale, an Argentinian tango show, is Saturday the 23rd of September at 7:30 p.m. And Blake are appearing on 30th of September 2023 at 7:30 p.m. More details are from Medina Theatre, which is telephone number 01983 823 884.
And a humanist history of the Isle of Wight, from Swinburne to spiritualism, at 7 o'clock. A history of humanism on the Isle of Wight. The island has a long history of humanist thinkers and non-religious pioneers who contributed towards the island's diversity and spirit of free thinkers. And this is being run by Community Action Isle of Wight at the Riverside Centre, the Quay, Newport. And you can contact for the date and more information on 07885 806996.
And now we have some letters. Patrick Costello from Ballybunion, County Kerry, Ireland, writes, "Something needs to be done on this main road. I have been a regular visitor to the Isle of Wight. It is a truly appalling state of affairs that when one is motoring from Arraton to Newport, or motoring up to the hill from Arraton to say Robin Hill, that a single cyclist can create a tailback of many dozens of cars. Cyclists should not be allowed to use the main roads on the Isle of Wight. Something needs to be done about this as an urgent need. Also, the fact that when one gets to the top of the hill, close to the Hare and Hounds public house, there is no room for cars or traffic to carry on straight. If someone in front needs to turn right to go across the downs, it beggars belief that a tiny strip of land to be purchased from the farmer, compulsory if needs be, so as to enable traffic to go straight on without being held up, then to find the lights turn red, was never actioned. This also needs to be done. And how come during the height of the tourist season one sees a spate of roadworks being commenced with roads being closed and main routes? It's very poor planning."
Please don't close ticket offices. This is from Ian Hunter of the Vectis Railway Enthusiasts Group. Please do not close the Island Rail ticket office at Ryde. People wrongly assume that the staff there just sell tickets to Shanklin or other stations on the route, but that is simply not the case. Along with many others, I frequently travel to various places on the mainland, and the friendly staff are always on hand to assist me and help me find the most suitable routes. One notable time that illustrates my point was last September, when I had planned a 5-day trip to Leeds and Manchester via hover travel in Southsea, Portsmouth, Waterloo and King's Cross. The journey required 5 separate tickets, which the staff sorted and printed for me a few days before my trip. Sadly, the Queen died the next day, and the steam special that I had intended to attend was cancelled. I went to the ticket office the following day, and the staff refunded my unused tickets without any fuss or stress on my part. A ticket machine would not have helped me in any capacity for that trip. Firstly, the current machine at the station does not recognise hover travel as part of a journey, despite it being included and discounted with my senior rail card when purchased at the ticket office. Secondly, the machine would not have allowed me to easily buy and print all the different stages of my journey, starting and ending at the many locations en route over different days. Thirdly, the ticket machine would not have been able to refund my unused tickets, which would potentially have left me over £180 out of pocket and distressed. This is just one of hundreds of examples of the times that I have used the ticket office to plan my train travel. I strongly feel that getting rid of this service would have a hugely detrimental impact on my own and many other people's ability to travel on and off the island. I would also like to raise my concern about the notion of people being charged £100 fine for travelling without a ticket. Surely this will be called into question if ticket offices are removed and machines, which are frequently not working, are being relied upon. I feel there is a lot more to be thought through here, and perhaps the train operating companies, who are clearly hoping to make higher profits by removing ticket offices, need to realise that 22% of train tickets are bought at ticket offices by pensioners. Can they afford to lose our custom?
I receive such excellent care, says Gillian McCahey from Newport. I would like to tell the public of the excellent care I receive from St Mary's Hospital from the ambulance personnel, accident and emergency assessment unit and the nurses as Apley Ward and doctors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hurst, for your imaginative displays. This is from Cindy Pushman of Newport. For the past 5 years, I have walked past Hurst in Newport at least 3 times a day, walking our little dog. I have always admired their windows. I thought the way the windows are dressed, the window dresser must have a plan to go by. That was until I saw a member of staff dressing one of the windows and deep in thought. I just had to ask her, did she follow a plan? Oh no, she replied. It seems that what is produced in the windows are input from other work colleagues and suggestions of items to go into the window. The rest is from her own imagination. I had to tell her how clever she was and thanked her for such lovely displays. In some of the windows you look at, the display, go away and return a couple of hours later and see something you missed the first time. What a pleasure. Thank you, Hurst staff, in making my walk with little one a pleasurable event.
Don't blame the bigger birds, writes A. Pragnell from Ryde. I read with interest the letter from R. Whiting regarding the amount of corvids present that was in the county press on the 25th of August 23. I feel that it is a fair point of view that isn't totally off the mark as to the imbalance, but somewhat misses the point as to why the imbalance exists to start with. Small birds and corvids have evolved to live alongside one another. The problem comes when this becomes unbalanced. Nature hates a vacuum and will fill it with the species that finds it easiest to adapt. The balance, in this case, has come through human means, destructions of habitat and domestic cats. Globally, cats have caused the extinction of at least 63 species. These include 2 reptile species, 21 mammal species and 40 species of birds. Currently, domestic cats are posing a threat to a minimum of 367 species. We have all seen the destruction of hedgerows caused by mechanised hedge cutters. It not only looks horrific, but imagine it's very disruptive to wildlife. The council's obsession with digging up green spaces to build houses on, the lack of housing isn't a problem, it's people buying them up for second and holiday homes, that is. If the habitat is lost, then the birds and other wildlife will also retreat. Other factors include intensification of agriculture and pollution. We are one of the most nature-depleted countries in the world. More than 1 in 7 native species face extinction, and more than 40% of native species are in decline. This includes 30% of birds. We come out on the bottom of the G7 list for species retention. We have beaten only Ireland and Malta. Crows can't be blamed for this. They are a symptom of the problem, not the cause. So while I agree there is an imbalance, I think the bigger picture has been missed.
Having 2 voices is good, from Mike Down in St Helens. Having 2 voices and 2 votes in Parliament must surely be a good thing. Even if they come from different parties, they will agree on most legislation designed to help the island.
And it's a goodbye from Jerry.
And it's goodbye from Madeline.
The BBC In Touch programme follows, and the scaffolding news follows that.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
The IBSA World Blind Games is a big event in the sporting calendar of visually impaired sports lovers. The competition involves over 1,100 athletes from 70 countries and also involving 10 sports, everything from cricket to chess, with judo and archery in between, and taking place in the UK for the first time ever here on the campus of Birmingham University, and a few other sites in the West Midlands. During this programme, we're going to be sampling a number of the sports involved, chatting to athletes, team officials and people who, as you can hear, have just come along to sample the fun. With me is Ian Isham. He is Head of Sports Development for British Blind Sport. Ian, I've given it the big build-up, but what is the true significance of these IBSA Games?
It's really the pinnacle for some of these athletes, and to be able to compete with people from all over the world is a great challenge for them, but something that they've all been doing really well at. For the kind of 3 Paralympic sports, so judo, goalball and football, that's Paralympic qualifiers ready for Paris next year.
Now, of course, this isn't just about the competitors. Where we are here, you've got a have-a-go area where people can come along and try out sports. How important is that aspect of it?
That's been a huge element for us. The whole kind of legacy piece of the Games has been really important. This is almost our legacy on the day, as it were. It's about different participants being able to come down, try something new. We can then help support them to find a club that might be local to them. Our website, we have an activity finder so people can put in their postcode and find what opportunities there are locally to them. And we run a series of Have-a-Go Day events across the country. So, again, just trying to help remove any barriers and get them onto their sporting journey.
That's interesting because you mentioned, perhaps trying to put people in contact with clubs. How difficult is it for blind people, particularly youngsters, to get introduction to sports? Particularly now that so many children go to mainstream schools rather than the more traditional schools with special provision for blind and partially sighted children.
It's definitely a key area that we're looking ourselves to try and help combat. So, school is where many people will, try sports for the first time, and we hear stories of people in mainstream schools, not necessarily having the right support. So we're working with PE teachers, school staff, coaches, and running a series of workshops and online e-learnings to help support them in how to work with blind and partially sighted people.
And have you had some blind and partially sighted kids actually having a go here over the last few days?
We've had a real mix of people, some blind and partially sighted children and adults that are trying sports for the first time, as well as a mix of people that don't have any sight loss that have been coming down and actually putting themselves in the shoes of these athletes. They're maybe watching them for the first time, taking part in some of these events, and then being inspired to almost understand the challenges they're facing, and that respect for kind of what they're achieving goes up even more.
Ian, thank you very much indeed. I shall carry on having a wander around and see what's happening.
Coming next on to mat 3, in the blue judo gi from Kazakhstan, Alfia Chelkabir. In the white judo gi from Ukraine, Anzela Havrisyuk.
Today is going to be a dramatic day for 2 of the judo team, Chris Skelly and Jack Hodgson, friends right down the years. Chris, you fought this morning. Can you just explain the significance of what's happening today?
I beat the Cuban in the quarterfinals and I just lost to the Iranian in the semi-finals, which means I'm fighting for bronze later this evening.
I mean, the point about these fights was I think only one of the 2 of you could qualify for the Paralympics. Is that right?
Yeah, so out of me and Jack, there's only one can qualify, but there's still lots of competitions to go, so we don't know who's going to qualify. It's still anyone's game.
How were the fights this morning from your point of view?
Very good, better performances than I fought them last time. I actually got one back against the Cuban because he beat me for bronze in Rio, so it was quite nice to kind of get one back over him. and then obviously fighting the Iranian a lot better. So yeah, very happy.
And who are you fighting in for the bronze?
Not sure yet. It'll be either Uzbekistan or Kazakhstan. I want to try and stay world number 1. So hopefully if I can get a medal here, it'll keep me in contention for staying up there.
We'll be back to see how you get on. Good luck.
England! England!
Well, this is music to my ears because I've played versions of blind cricket all my life to not a very high standard, but enormously enjoyed it. So hearing it in the background is good. We're at King Edward School in Birmingham, which is where this semi-final match between England and India is being played. With me is Jane Powell, who's the performance manager for Disability Cricket. Jane, first of all, most important of all, what's the score?
So the score is 217 for 5 to the Indian women's team, who have just finished their innings. So it's a chase for the England girls now. They've managed to cut it down by 50 runs from the first time they played them. We're still in with an outside possibility of getting to the final.
What's the state of the women's game in England at the moment, would you say?
So the women's VI game is very much at the start of a journey, I would suggest, because although some of the women play in the county competition, that's with a large ball, with a size 3 football. So when it came to small ball, international style blind cricket, we only had 23 girls who were up for selection. So one of my main aims from this tournament is to raise the profile and then have at least double, if not triple that number by this time next year, so that we can start having a real selection.
And for people who know their cricket but don't know much about VI cricket, that will sound rather puzzling, because they'll wonder, well, why do we have, almost 2 types of games with a different sized ball?
Yeah, and I think it's not dissimilar to women's cricket in the country, where we have now softball competitions and we have hardball competitions in the mainstream cricket. The larger ball is a little bit softer, so I think when people were setting it up, they wanted to keep it safe for people with a visual impairment. And now the visually impaired are saying, look, we want to be recognised as cricketers, so they want to play with a hardball because everybody else plays with a hardball.
I've actually got the cricket ball, which they use now, and this is nothing like the ball that I used to play with, because the ball I played with for years was more like a football, really, although it rattled. I suppose, to be fair, this feels more like a proper bona fide cricket ball with the sort of ridge round the head, and it still rattles. Jane, for the first time, really, women's sport really is on the crest of a wave. There's an enormous amount of interest. Is that happening in the VI sphere as well?
I absolutely think it is. Every county now has a disability cricket officer. And my challenge to them moving on from this tournament will be, if every county could find me 2 visually impaired females who wanted to play cricket, suddenly we'll have over 100 girls. We can help develop them. There will be girls out there who want to play, who probably don't even know that we run an England women's VI blind team, and hopefully they'll start to go, I'd like to play that, and they'll contact their county boards and find out where they can play, and then we'll start picking them up.
In again, this one's all the way along the floor, only as far as the wicket-keeper. Lots of shouting, but both of the batsmen just standing comfortably in their ground, ignoring it all.
I'm also joined by Minerva Ainsworth, one of the England players. Not in this game, but I think you have played already. How's it been going for you so far?
It's been going amazingly. We've learnt what we need to improve on. I prefer bowling with the international ball than the domestic ball. You're basically using the same skills. You may not be moving as much.
Something seems to have happened over there. I don't know if that's a wicket.
Someone's out.
It sounds like it, doesn't it?
Someone's out.
Oh dear. You prefer the international ball. Is that because you can get your fingers around it a bit better?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to bowl. For me, I struggle keeping the domestic ball straight, while the international ball is much more easier to throw. And it's on the ground, so it's easier to track.
Now, India seem very strong, don't they? And what do you think it would take to get the England side to that standard?
We need to make international teams all over the country but with the international ball, so that we can hone in our skills, because we do play against sighted teams, but they wear sim specs, so not as accurate.
And I suppose really for it to be a real kind of genuine contest, you want to play
against other VIs,
blind team on VI teams.
Yeah.
Right, the next game then is Team Amy on my left, Team Connor on my right. Got it.
Got it.
Go!
This isn't just all about competitors, because we mentioned this whole idea of a have a go day. So there are people doing all sorts of things around here, and I'm just wandering over to find out about a game that I didn't actually know about, called Showdown. Something is being hit by something else. I need to get more information about this. Can we talk to Mum first?
Yeah,
Then
that's
we'll talk
me.
to you too. I'm just interested that you're here, really, and what you're doing, because your two children have been playing with a goal ball, haven't they?
Yes.
What brought you here?
Well, I saw on LinkedIn that this was going on and it sounded really interesting, and it's a school holidays, so I thought I'd bring the boys along to find out what these sports are like.
Have you ever seen goal ball played before?
I've never heard of it, I've never seen it, but we're going to go and have a look on YouTube when we get home, because apparently it gets very fast. So I think the one that we were playing with today was kind of a practice ball, a bit lighter, but the other one was heavy, wasn't it? Have you enjoyed it?
Yeah.
Have you played this other game, Showdown? Are you going to have a go at that?
I've already had a go.
You had a go. I don't understand that game. Can you explain it to me?
So there's this ball that rattles, and you have a bat each, and you have to try and hit it into each other's goal.
How well did you do?
Quite good.
So they started off, being able to see and use their eyes, and then they put the masks on afterwards, and had to go without being able to see.
Right.
Yeah, and I had to go at goal ball as well. It's very difficult.
Well, back with the saga of Chris Skelly, and Chris certainly doesn't lack support, because I'm now with Louise Hunt Skelly, his wife. Louise, this is a pretty tight atmosphere, isn't it?
My goodness me, the tension is pretty big, but that's kind of what you want. It's the point in sport, right? It's nice that it's exciting, and I just can't wait to watch his final fight. Obviously, he came here for gold, but there's still a medal on the table, and he's going to do everything he can to get it.
And what about the significance as far as the Paralympics are concerned?
Yeah, no, this is a really big, important event. So for all the athletes here, there's points on the table to go towards their qualifications and their rankings to qualify for Paris. For Chris, he's obviously still officially needs to qualify, but he really wants to regain that number one in the world spot. So every point he can get is crucial to staying at that top level.
You'll obviously know about the sort of saga with him and Jack Hodgson. I saw Jack this morning and he looked a little bit down. It really is a situation where it is Chris or him, isn't it?
Yeah, it's something that's actually a real shame. So with that change in the weight categories, it's meant that Chris and Jack for this Paralympic cycle have ended up in the same category, and the reason it's a shame is because only one can go from each country. They've been to all their Paralympics together, and it makes me really sad that it's literally impossible for them both to compete at the next one.
What sort of a spectator are you, Louise?
An absolute nervous wreck. So I was an athlete myself, that's how Chris and I met. And my goodness me, it's so much easier being the athlete. It's the worst thing being in the crowd. I think it's when you love somebody though, you feel everything that they feel and more, don't you? It's almost worse when you're watching the person you love. It's quite hard to find opportunities to actually be at events with Chris, so it's just lovely to be here. We are out in full force, ready to cheer him on.
Archery has got a particularly interesting background as a sport for blind people because it's very much got a military background. It was St Dunstan's, the organisation for ex-blind servicemen, who really started the whole thing off. We're featuring today Clive Jones, who any minute now is going to be competing for the possibility of maybe even a gold medal. So we're just going to wander over to where he's shooting.
And the judge has given us the result there. Clive Jones will shoot a Stephen Van Hollaback in the gold medal match tomorrow
Clive, Peter White from In Touch.
Hello, Peter White from In Touch. How are you, my friend?
I'm very good. Well, you must be feeling fantastic about that.
Yeah.
You had to think about it.
When it sinks in, yeah, I will.
So you compete now for the gold tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how that ranks with the other performances you've done. Is this one of your best days?
Internationally, it's the best. It is the best day.
Yeah.
And there's me thinking I was bronze. I didn't realise I was minimum silver.
So, a rather overwhelmed Clive Jones there. But the following day, he did in fact win the silver in his class, and he joins me now back in the studio. Clive, I suppose, may be a bit disappointed, but still, you've got to rate that as a really good performance.
Disappointed, Peter? Absolutely not. I'm still overwhelmed by the fact that I got silver in the first place. To be honest with you, I was up against the former world champion, the world record holder, the current European champion in Ruben van Hollebeek from Belgium. So to even, be on the same podium as him is, in my opinion, just wonderful.
And one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you a bit more, Clive, is because your personal story is a very special one. Just explain how you lost your sight and how it led eventually into archery.
Well, I'm a former soldier and I served in the army from 1991 to 2003. Sadly, it was in 2000 that I was actually a victim of a savage and an unprovoked assault. It was that assault that left me totally blind. I was then picked up by a rehabilitation centre called St Dunstan's, which now is called Blind Veterans UK. They actually taught me how to shoot a bow and arrow. And as you can appreciate, a blind man with a bow and arrow, it's quite strange and quite funny.
Just for those who don't know, explain how a totally blind person actually does shoot an arrow successfully.
We work with a set of foot markers, a sort of loose horseshoe kind of shape. Now, that is attached to a T-piece in which sits 3 legs of a camera tripod. Now, on top of that camera tripod, there is a 2 centimetre long sight, which touches literally the back of your hand. With the aid of a spotter who tells you where your arrow has gone, whether it be 3 o'clock red, 4 o'clock blue, and then you adjust accordingly by moving the sight left, right, or with the tripod, the elevation shaft up and down. And the spotter is there purely just to tell you where the arrow's gone and just to give you some directional instruction once you finish shooting, because you can't give instruction whilst you're shooting. It's quite simple, but extremely therapeutic.
Clive Jones, thanks so much for joining us. But in sport, whether or not you're visually impaired, it's always a narrow line between success and failure. So back one last time to the judo hall.
In the blue judo gi, representing Great Britain, Chris Skelly. On back to the winner and bronze medalist from Uzbekistan, Alobidin Jurakulov.
So after a gruelling day, no medal for Chris and no confirmed place in next year's Paralympics, although there are still points he could pick up in future competitions to make it to Paris next year. And just a final catch-up on the women's cricket team that we covered. Sadly, they lost their semi-final to India, but clearly there are big plans to boost women's cricket here for the future. And that's it for today from Birmingham. From me, Peter White, producer Beth Hemmings and studio managers Phil Booth and Nat Stokes, goodbye.
Scaffolding news for the week commencing the 4th of September. In the Newport area, outside HSBC 101 St James Street, 69 Hooks Way, 27 Pyle Street, 27 Lugley Street, 62 Castlehold Lane, 32 Chapel Street, 1A High Street, 54 Lugley Street, Oxfam 34 Upper St James Street, JD Sports 110 to 112 High Street. In the Ryde area, 107 St John's Road, Hills Court, Newport Street, 76 High Street, 11 Melville Street, M&Co Store 161, Bar 74 Union Street, 66 Union Street. And in the Seaview area, Flat 1 St Leonard's Pier Road.
In Cowes area we have 6 Terminus Road, 9 Bath Road and 71 York Street. Sandown area, Flat C, St George's Hall, George Hall, George Street. And in Ventnor area we have 31 Pierce Street, 1 Spring Hill and the Met Bar on Ventnor Esplanade.